the moment.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for joining us. I appreciate it. All right. Now to our speaker today. Did I miss anybody? I don't think so, but okay. I'm delighted to introduce our speaker today, Mackenzie Chapek with Brave Animal Rescue. A few weeks ago, we put out an email to our employees at Southeast Community College and said, hey, we've got this coffee for small business owners. We know some of you have small businesses that you've started on the side. So if you'd like to talk about them at our coffee, we'd love to hear about them. And so that's how we got Mackenzie's name. Mackenzie's also an employee of Southeast Community College on our Milford campus, and I'll let her tell you more about that. But Mackenzie, I'm going to turn it over to you and let you educate us about Brave Animal Rescue.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. I'm really excited to be here today. And like you said, I do work at SCC. I'm in the admission office on the Milford campus. In my spare time, whenever that is, I do enjoy saving animals. And so I'm one of the founders and directors of Brave Animal Rescue, which is actually only 2 months old today. So although we thought 2020 was, I'll say it, kind of a crapshoot, we decided to start our own business. So in early March, me and 2 of my best friends decided to get together. We've been in the animal community for over 5 years and probably saved over 500 animals at this point. But we decided that there was another need in Lincoln, Nebraska for another animal rescue. So we are an all in-home foster-based rescue, which means we do not have a facility. We basically take in orphaned or abandoned animals, whether that's dogs, cats, kittens, and puppies, and we nurture them back to health or just kind of get them ready, fixed, and vetted for getting adopted. So, but yeah, so we're Brave Animal Rescue. I guess our mission to start off is dedicating and protecting the vulnerable and abandoned animals through rescue, compassionate care, and advocacy. So part of what we really want to do is, of course, save animals, but we also want to educate the community and the public on vetting needs that animals deserve and need throughout their lifespan, as well as just educating and advocating for those who can't do it for themselves. So we were started September 12th, so this is our 2-month anniversary, and currently, as of this coming weekend, we will have saved 83 total animals. We've adopted out probably about half of that by now, and then we have about 40 or so in our care currently. So I'll start off with talking about a couple different facts about rescue in general, and then maybe some myths that people have heard about rescue, and then get into a little bit more about the business side, about how it was to start a business within the 2020 pandemic that we're currently going through and some of the struggles and things that we've gone through. So if you didn't know, according to the Humane Society of the United States, 80% of kittens are actually born outside. And if left to their own will, they probably won't make it, whether that is just by disease, vehicles, or predators. So part of what we do is we take in those who are the most vulnerable, which is usually those of 8 weeks and younger. So puppies and kitties. You would think that we have a lot of rescues. We have a lot of, I guess, just places for them to go, but really that's not the case. So those who are 8 weeks and under are those at most risk of being euthanized because they are usually those who have the most amount of resources needed. They require foster homes. They don't do well in a shelter type atmosphere because they usually require bottle feedings, a lot of vetting care and things like that. So that is what we really focus on, but we take pretty much whatever. So, and basically we run off of donations, grants, and kind-hearted people. So we, I guess, yeah, we'll take in whatever, but we run off a lot of donations, and then a lot of our fosters, we could not do anything without them. So kind of getting into what we learned through the pandemic, we started this process back in March, and it was myself and 2 other friends, and it was a long, drawn-out process. It took a long time to write a business plan, to get funding or approval from the Department of Ag, looking at, a nonprofit license, and then, starting a website, finding people just to help we all have full-time jobs, so this is just something that we do on our nights and weekends. And thankfully for the pandemic, we had a lot of extra time on our hands. So that was kind of nice to at least have that extra time to get together via Zoom, talk about what we all wanted our rescue to embody, what we wanted to save and maybe focus on, and then how we wanted to be a resource for the community. I know that a lot of rescues are and shelters are just bogged down with trying to save hundreds of animals. We get usually asked to save about 40 or so a week, which means we unfortunately have to say no a lot. But we also can only do what we have for restrictions. So if we only have so many fosters, we can only take in so many animals. So meeting a lot via Zoom, and trying to figure out how we wanted to do all of that. Getting people to basically invest in us was a really hard thing to do. We've been doing rescue for 5 years, but we never really had to be the ones that said, hey, we're the ones in charge, and this is why you should donate to us, or this is why we find our work so meaningful, and this is why you should too. So just learning to believe in ourselves was a really big leap of faith. And so going through that, educating our friends and family on what we wanted to do, and having them join in, whether it's financially or just, that emotional support that we all need. So that was really big. For those looking to have their own business, I think a real big thing is find a lawyer, an accountant, and a board of directors. I think that's kind of the main brick and mortar that you need. And so finding people who are of a diverse background in all areas that can support you, whether that's financially, legally, um, giving you emotional support, but then also just the accountant of making sure that you have things in order to be able to take in animals and vet them, but also make a profit, even though you're a nonprofit. So finding ways to balance those checkbooks, but then also make sure that you can still do everything you need. And then also just make sure that you're giving the animals and your human fosters the care that they need. Like I said, we run on donations. So if we don't have food donated to us, it's really hard to take in animals. We really don't like to tell our fosters they have to pay for things. It's just about finding that happy balance of, when to know when to ask for things, how to pay for things, and navigating all of those different worlds. We pull a lot of our animals, or we tag, meaning we commit to an animal from basically all over the Midwest. We find a lot within our back door. Literally, sometimes they come up to our front porches, and that's how we find kitties. But also, we do find a lot of puppies and dogs, and sometimes hospice animals throughout the Midwest. We pull a lot from Oklahoma, Texas, Southeast Missouri. Those are big areas that have a lot of overrun shelters that they just don't have a lot of resources. Those where they have, the warmer months all year round, that leads to a lot of people having animals that run outside all year round. So we do a lot with making partnerships with those around the area, and within the community, and then across the whole states. So it's really just, making sure that you're communicating with everyone, and finding a balance, but kind of doing with what you can within those limitations. I would say one of the biggest things I've learned is that you can never over communicate, and trying to do whatever you can to communicate how you want your board of directors to be ran, to your rescue, to making sure fosters know what's expected of them, to talking with veterinarians across the Lincoln area that you work with, but also those that you're working with down in the South, and making sure that animals have proper health certificates to cross the borders. It's crazy, all those little fine and minute details that you don't really think about, that you really have to make sure that because if the Department of Ag comes to you and says, hey, I need all of your records for the month of September, all of your vetting expenses, your income, your outcome, how many you currently have in your care, does everyone have a foster liability form? It's, all these things that you don't really think about, but when you talk to resources, and we talk to a lot of different rescues to get an idea of how did you start? Where do you even begin? What do you like about running a rescue and your own business? And how do you find time for your own mental health to make sure that you can adequately, run a business, but also take care of yourself and those around you? So we really try to look at the holistic approach to having a business and making sure that it's well taken all around and we don't put all of our eggs in one basket. Um, I would also say, assume nothing. So, sometimes you can think that you've communicated things well and you understand, but you're also that person that is in the nitty-gritty of everything that you're doing. And so, if you just assume that others understand what you're talking about, that can be a huge detriment and a huge fall to your business, to your adopters, to your fosters. And so I really have taken on the approach, as well as the other directors, of when I ask for something or when I communicate something, I'll usually try to ask if they heard that properly or how they interpreted that, so that we make sure that we're on the same page. I can assume that the foster, even though they've known us for years and years, that they know what's expected of them, but they could have a new puppy that has something that, a cough, and they don't know how to take care of that. So just really making sure that we can be a resource for them, but they also know what they have available to them as well. So that's a huge thing that I've learned, and we're still learning. I mean, I'm going to be a lifelong learner. So are our other directors and our fosters and our adopters. And I think the biggest thing is just making sure that we have enough time and resources to help those around us in the community. So I would say, yeah, those are the pretty big points I would say that we've learned. I'm sure there are a million other things too. But I wanted to maybe bring up 5 or so different myths that people have about rescue. A lot of times I've been asked by even my own parents or friends and family, like, "Man, how do you foster dogs who are abused and untrained and all these different things?" And I'm like, actually, they're not all abused. That's maybe less than 5% of the animals that we see. When they're puppies and kitties, usually those under 8 weeks of age, they know nothing. So really it's, training and being patient. We find very few that are actually abused, which is a great thing. We find a lot that have just been outside and they've never had anyone to train them. So most dogs really just, and cats, they just want to be loved and have love in return. So it's really a very humbling experience to be able to provide that for a very vulnerable part of animals. I've been asked if a lot of them have health and behavioral issues, and sometimes yes. A lot of times when they're very young and sick and outdoors and have been given little vet care or nutrition, they are very sick. But in all honesty, we take care of them, and we would never adopt out a sick animal. So we usually make sure that they are fully vetted, or they are always fully vetted, and fully healthy by the time that they are adopted out into families. Sometimes there are unexpected vet bills that come up because we can't ever guarantee the health and temperament of a dog or cat, but we'll tell you absolutely everything we know and we'll give you all their vetting records. And again, we want to be a resource for them after they adopt. Um, Fostering is very expensive is a huge myth that I have heard. People are like, I never could have done this because I just don't have the money to do it. And that's really very untrue. I would say that most rescues, I know for us for sure, but even the other ones that we've worked with, they provide everything, whether that's vet care to the food that the animals need, to the crates that they sleep in at night, to blankets, sometimes cleaning material. We really do whatever we can. So if we get dog bowls donated to us, literally it's just time that people need to foster. And I think the final thing that is a huge myth is, man, fostering is so hard. I could never do it because dot, dot, dot. I understand that, fostering isn't for everyone. It is hard to give up animals, but goodbye is the goal. So when I think about taking in an animal to my house, I think of it as temporary babysitting. This is not mine. I am here to make sure that it's getting everything necessary, love and attention and vet care. And then I'm going to find the best home for them so that I can take in another one that is very vulnerable. So when I think about it, fostering is it's a heroic act, in my opinion. It's very selfless as well. So by fostering, you actually save 2 lives, and by adopting, you save 3. So by adopting, you take in an animal, which creates a foster home that is available to take in another animal from a shelter who is able to take in another animal off the streets. So it is, when you think about it, you save so many other lives just by even saving one. So even if you want to foster to adopt to see if that's right for you, you still save more animals by opening your home to that who just doesn't have anything. So with that, I think that's probably the biggest points. I'm an open book, so if you guys have questions about the different things that we went through with the pandemic to Zoom meetings, because you can't really meet in person with social distancing, I'm open to talking about whatever.
So,
Mackenzie, thank you so much. That was extremely interesting. And I'm fascinated by your numbers that you have already placed that many animals, being as new as you are. I got a question for you. I have some knowledge of golden retriever rescue in Nebraska. We got our golden retriever through them. Um, and I know on occasion and they take senior dogs too. So they'll take any golden, no matter what age. But I know in some cases they spend a ton of money on vet bills. How do you handle those? I mean, I would expect that's probably one of your largest expenses, no?
Oh, absolutely. And really, it's finding that healthy balance of we wholeheartedly know that there will be some animals that we lose our butts off of for vetting care for what we actually adopt them out as. But then also on the opposite side of things, there are some, puppies and kitties who have less vet expenses that we do make money off of. And so it kind of contradicts that. So as an example, we adopt kittens out for $150, and that seems like a lot of money to adopt a cat that you can find for free on Craigslist. But these cats come fully vetted. They are tested for FELV, FIELV, which is a common disease. They've gotten all of their booster shots, sometimes even rabies, and they're house trained because they're in a home. So you think about it, you have little expenses after the adoption. And then I think about, we have a heartworm positive dog that is probably going to cost us about $1,200, and we'll adopt out to $200. So we will have to adopt out a lot of kitties in order to make that vet bill happen. But on the opposite side of things, we have a lot of people that believe in our mission and our values. We have donors from across the state to even across the country that have really followed us on social media. They enjoy what we do. And because I think we're so open and vulnerable and being very transparent, we have been able to have a couple donors that are willing to fund us a couple $1,000s each month to sponsoring certain dogs. And hopefully after we have a year under our belt, we'll actually be able to apply for grants. So I know there's a lot of different grants out there that they may be $500 to $5,000. So really right now, the first year they say is the hardest. It's definitely true. But yeah, so I mean, really, we're nothing without donors to kind of make that whole circle go around.
I got a question for you, Mackenzie. Given the last 6 months, the lack of socialization, distancing, handshakes, all that stuff, I've heard that therapy dogs, other dogs are on the rise as far as people getting them to help with that, to offset that as they hunker down or whatnot. I know our owners are involved in raising golden doodles. Therapy wise, do you see, I mean, I don't even know what my question is really, but do you get involved with the therapy dog side of things at all?
So we've worked with that in the past. That's an area that we're not super knowledgeable about, and I'm a firm believer to stick to what you know. And so,
Right.
I mean, we'll pair with other people. I know that I think I've worked with domestic pups before in Lincoln, and they do a lot with therapy. And so, we've had dogs that, get adopted as puppies, and we've seen them 4 or 5 years later that they're now a therapy dog in the LPS school district. And so that's really cool. So we've used our resources to tell our adopters where they can go for that. But we
Perfect.
have seen a huge increase of people wanting to adopt puppies and kitties because they're at home. They are under socialized as people, and they just want something to sit on their lap so they can just pet for the emotional support of that. So that is absolutely a huge in Perk right now.
Great.
Hey, Mackenzie, I was on a quick FaceTime from a family member because of today, but I don't know if this question got asked. Walk through the sequence from the time you get a pup or a kitty to the time that you release that person, and where does it go next, and what are the steps, in other words,
Yeah,
for fostering?
that's a great question. So basically we get asked, I'll just talk about our dog Barney that we're getting this weekend. So we have an 11-year-old Chihuahua Terrier mix that is coming to our rescue on Saturday. He was found on the streets, no vet care, really needed a dental. So I worked with someone in Oklahoma. They are getting the vet care done down there while they're holding until a transport can be driven all the way up to Nebraska. So this week that dog has undergone a neuter, a full dental, has received rabies and all vaccinations, heartworm preventatives, all the necessary vet care, is staying at basically a temporary foster home until someone can drive from Oklahoma to Nebraska to where we are. When that happens on Saturday, I will take the dog, and I have a foster home that is stepped up to take them. We'll meet on Saturday, and basically that dog will stay there until we know a little bit more about the personality enough to write a bio, get some pictures done, and put them up on our website. We also use a lot of different platforms such as Pet Finder and Adopt-A-Pet to get out more information and stuff about our adoptables. And basically people can apply anywhere thereafter. Sometimes an animal will be in foster care for 2 weeks if they're fully vetted, to maybe 3 months if they require some extra work. So really, I can't ever tell a foster approximately how long we'll have an animal. But usually it's in that sweet spot of 2 weeks to about 3 months, unless it's a hospice animal that stays with us until they decide to cross the Rainbow Bridge. So yeah, I mean, there's
like
so
that
many people
Rainbow
that go in.
So then when you post them, then they go up for adoption, is that correct? Okay.
Yep. And then we have all of our information on how you adopt, all the vetting that's been done, what the adoption fee is, and basically our process thereafter. Once someone applies to adopt, we go through a full vetting process of seeing if they have previous ownership, previous vetting history. We talk to personal references. We look at home ownership, if they have a fenced in yard, and just how they answer some of our questions. From there, we've been setting up Zoom meetings so we can socially distant, but then they can see and talk with the foster and myself or another director just to learn more about our process. And then if they decide to adopt, we usually send them on a 10-day to 2-week trial period is what we like to call it. So they pick up in front of my house, and it's a no contact adoption. They sign the adoption paperwork, they pay the adoption fee, and then they take the animal home. We check in on them regularly just to see how they're doing, how the dog or cat is adjusting. And then if all goes well and they say, hey, it's a perfect fit, thank you for letting us adopt, we will deposit the money and we will finalize the adoption so they can have all vetting privileges.
Cool. And as part of that, and again, I apologize if it was answered, is that how you create revenue then, is through the adoption fees? Okay.
That is part of it. A lot of it is outside donors. That is a huge part of how we get donors and money in, but we do make some money off of adoption fees. There's also some that we lose a couple $100s on an animal.
Sure, depending on what you add up front for costs.
Yep.
Thank you.
Mackenzie, why pet adoption? Did you always dreaming, this is what I want to do, or what happened that, what's your why for getting into this?
That is a great question. And I've thought about that a lot. Really, after college, I graduated 5 years ago, and I knew I wanted a dog and I wanted to adopt, but I knew that with my job back then, I traveled a lot, didn't have a lot of time to spend 100% of my time giving that animal the time and attention it deserved. So I said, hey, what if I fostered that temporary, when it's my travel season, I don't have to have a dog, but when I'm home, I can have one. So I got into that, and I slowly just became more intrigued and wanting to learn more. So instead of being a foster, I became an adoption coordinator, and I helped out with the background of things. And I kept asking questions, which led to me getting more involved, which eventually 5 years later, here I am with my own rescue.
Awesome.
So who maintains your website, or do you have something? Because I'm thinking that your website has to be extremely current for people to be coming in that I have this, or I'm looking for this. One of my children just adopted a dog out of Texas. And it's like, you're sitting there going, how did they even find out about this dog since they're in Nebraska? So obviously you have some brilliant person doing your website.
It's a lot of friend resources. So I did have a friend that is new to graphic design and creating things. So I got a lot of help from her, which we do advertise her on our website. So, if we have people that help us out, we do advertise for them. We help them, they help us. But honestly, for maintaining everything, it is self-learn and self-taught. The three of us do pretty much the bulk of everything, from tagging animals to our background of vetting to communicating to fostering and adopting. We do have about 20 to 30 other fosters that work with us that take on the bulk of fostering the animals and communicating with us. And then we're always looking for volunteers. One of our fosters had put it pretty well the other day. They said, find what you're good at and then lend your resource. And so if we have people that come to us that say, I would not be a good foster, but I really have a lot of knowledge in finance, how can I help you? We would absolutely take that on and just to learn more and find ways to refine our process to make it better. We're never going to be perfect. We're young, we are learning, but we are so eager to be a resource for the community and basically make ends meet so we can provide more of a service for people later on.
Any other questions for Mackenzie? Mackenzie,
I do have a question.
okay.
Since you don't have a physical building, is your garage the storage place for all of these things, the food, everything you have?
Yeah, it really is. And we had a Stock the Garage event a couple weeks ago, and it moved me to tears how much the Lincoln community, our friends and family, were so willing to help. We filled my garage so much full that we had to fill two other directors' homes and their garages as well, from
Wow.
anywhere from litter to wet food to dry food to toys, kennels. It was amazing. And so my husband bought me for my birthday a new storage rack to go in the garage. So yes, it's amazing the things that people are so willing to help us out with, and we're nothing without their donations.
That's a great story. Any other questions for Mackenzie?
I got to run. Bye.
Bye, John. If not, Mackenzie, thank you so much for joining us today. And I will steer people to your website, Brave Animal Rescue. They have a great website. So if you are in the need of an animal that you'd like to rescue, check it out. If you'd like to volunteer, and I know there's tons of volunteer opportunities with most rescues. Not only do they need foster families, but they need people that will provide transportation for dogs, all kinds of stuff. So if you feel like volunteering, check them out. And Mackenzie, what social media platforms can we follow you on?
Yeah, so you can follow us on Facebook and Instagram.
Okay. Well, again, thank you for being here today. And as a reminder to everybody on the call, join us next week. Our speaker will be Charlie Colon with Chick-fil-A. He owns the Chick-fil-A at South Point. And we can all learn from their customer service example that they said. If you've never been through, in fact, I would tell everybody before next week's meeting, go to Chick-fil-A over the noon hour and tell me you, and I know you'll come away impressed. So anyway, Charlie Cologne with Chick-fil-A next week at this time. We skip the next week for Thanksgiving. And then on December 3rd, we have Lori Frazier with Country Sliced Ham and Cafe. And then on December 10th, Molly Hope with Hope First Physical Therapy and Wellness. So I hope you'll continue to join us. We appreciate everybody that takes the time out of their day to be here. Thank you, everyone, and we'll hopefully see you next week.
Thank you, Steve.
You bet. Thank you.